And you say, oh, we don't believe that anymore. We've grown out of that. Well, of course we've grown out of it. We've grown out of it because of secular moral philosophy and rational discussion.
In the next few minutes, you will come to understand how your support for Christianity is making child abuse possible. Christians, like any group of people, spread out across a spectrum. At one end of the spectrum are fundamentalist Christians and evangelical Christians. In the middle, there are practicing Christians, and at the other end, there are casual Christians.
Look at this one. A desk of Cheez-Its. A desk? Where are you getting these units of measurement from?
Okay, do you mean conservative, moderate, and liberal? Do you mean zealous, not so zealous, and slightly less zealous? Do you mean convicted, sort of convicted, and not so convicted? Please define your terms.
The problem is the fundamentalist Christians and the evangelical Christians. Their faith borders on insanity, and the insanity manifests itself in myriad ways, as we will see in a moment.
Okay, got it. Like any group, there are extremists and then non-extremists. You could have just said that in the first place. And the extremists are the problem. Naturally. Please continue.
The further problem is that the casual Christians give Christianity an overwhelming mass in our society, and therefore provide harborage for the insanity of fundamentalists and evangelicals. If you are a casual Christian, you are making this insanity possible by your support of Christianity.
No, you're not. You didn't say Christianity was the problem. It isn't. You clearly and accurately identified the problem at the beginning. Extremists. You also accurately but not so clearly pointed out that every group has its extremists and non-extremists. People who support the Dodgers aren't giving cover to the guys who beat the shit out of a Giants fan. People who support the ASPCA aren't giving cover to the ALF. People who recycle aren't giving cover to ecological terrorists. If you are not an extremist yourself, then you aren't supporting or giving cover to extremism. You yourself said that it was the moderate Christians who constitute the majority in America. Well, if moderate Christians are the majority, then the only thing being validated is moderate Christianity. Let me say this once and for all. If you support an idea, any idea, you are not automatically supporting that idea's extreme wing just because you're contributing to said idea's existence.
Here is what James Dobson has to say about beating children. The spanking should be of sufficient magnitude to cause the child to cry genuinely. After the emotional ventilation, the child will often want to crumple to the breast of his parent, and he should be welcomed with open, warm, loving arms. Striking a child or beating a child is insanity.
It's what? Okay, first of all, you're setting up a complete red herring, and this is the part of the video that's really pissing me off because you're making me defend James Dobson. But Dobson didn't say that you should beat your children. He said that you should spank your children. Now, I don't advocate corporal punishment and child rearing for a variety of reasons, some of which we'll talk about here. But there is a difference between physical punishment in child rearing and child abuse. There is a difference between a spanking and a beating. Second of all, what was that you said about insanity?
Striking a child or beating a child is insanity. How do we know this? Simply by replacing the word child with a variety of other words, we can clearly understand the insanity of what James Dobson is saying. The beating should be of sufficient magnitude to cause the woman to cry genuinely. That's insane, isn't it?
Okay, stop right there. Beating a woman and using physical discipline in child rearing are not the same. At all. That's for one thing. For another thing, Beating a woman is not insane. It's belligerent and violent and illegal and wrong and heinous. Insanity means that you're doing something under the duress of a mental illness.
The beating should be of sufficient magnitude to cause your spouse to cry genuinely. You would be arrested for striking your spouse, and rightly so. The beating should be of sufficient magnitude to cause your dog to cry genuinely. Also insane.
Okay, first of all, you've replaced the word spanking with the word beating. Dobson did not say that you should beat your child. Second of all, I'm tired of this. Let's listen to somebody who knows how to analyze this without just using the word insanity over and over again.
And Dobson is clear that the punishment must be painful. Painful enough so that the kids will have an incentive to do right, not wrong, and therefore discipline themselves internally. And if they have that internal discipline, then they will be able to go out into the world, seek their self-interest, and become prosperous. The idea is so that the children, if they follow this idea, then they can become their own strict fathers, in a way, when they grow up, and if not, they remain dependent. And it's what people who've studied child development have found to be one of the worst ways of raising children.
Thank you, George Lakoff. That actually says something about why Dobson was wrong. Dobson says that you should spank your children so that they have a negative association with wrong behavior, that is the way to teach your children right from wrong. What's wrong with that is the fact that that isn't a moral compass. That's risk avoidance. In certain cases, it may be true that a swat on the hand or a swat on the butt is the only thing that a child will respond to when it comes to things like running across a busy street or maybe stealing at certain ages. But generally speaking, what we should be doing as parents is teaching our children something about right and wrong, not about how to avoid negative consequences. This is not sanity versus insanity, it's effective versus ineffective.
In most sane places, body blows like this would be seen and charged as assault.
No one's talking about body blows. They're talking about spanking.
But fundamentalist Christians and evangelical Christians see the beating of their children as something good that is commanded by their God.
No, they don't. They see spanking their children as the correct method of teaching them right from wrong.
And unfortunately, Christians are a majority in America, so their religious child abuse goes unchallenged.
In a rise in support of Senate Bill 3817, the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, reauthorization of 2010. This bill reauthorizes the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act, the Family Violence Services and Prevention Act, and the Adoption Opportunities Act. This is a narrowly tailored and responsible reauthorization for these important laws to update and improve these programs that help children and their families from violence.